Hello, this is Robbie Higdon coming to you from James Madison University to share with you a little bit about the work we did in providing professional development on MWEEs to our pre-service teachers. So, who are we? I am Robbie Higdon. I do teach undergraduate courses in foundations and general instructional methods for grades 6 through 12 here in the College of Education, and I also supervise field experience placements. And my partner in this initiative is Cindy Klevickis, who teaches in the Integrated Science and Technology program over in the College of Integrated Science and Engineering. She also serves as the JMU Professor of Residence at Huguenot High School in Richmond, Virginia. And she also teaches courses in science content for K through 8 teachers. And together we are the fabulous advisors for the ROOP Residential Learning Community here at JMU for Future Educators. What is ROOP, you ask? This is a residential learning community that's made up of freshman students who are planning for a career in education. When they decide that they are going to attend JMU, they can apply to be a part of our community, which we try to limit to about 24 students each year. These students live together in the dorm. They take courses in a cohort model, 2 courses each semester during the freshman year. They take 1 science content course and 1 educational foundations course. And because they are a learning community and all live in the dorm, one of these courses is usually taught in the dorm. So it really reinforces that concept of learn where you live. So why do we feel that place-based education is so important and is a founding principle of our community? We believe that preparing educators who understand how to emphasize hands-on real-life learning experiences can tremendously impact student motivation to learn, students' learning of content and skills, and students being able to transfer and apply that knowledge and understanding beyond the classroom. The work of David Sobel is one of the key foundations for us. And so to put his words into our words, we would say, for example, it's very hard to teach students about global climate change or dead zones in the ocean or the giant plastic keeps in the ocean without first having them experience their own backyard. Yes, these things are also happening right here in our schoolyard, at your bus stop, at your community recreation center. These are not things that happen in other places. So we're trying to help our future educators center their education and helping students see how what they're learning in the classroom, whether it be in mathematics or language arts or science, is very applicable to what they encounter in the world when they leave the school. However, so sounds great. Why isn't everybody doing this? Right? Well, we all know we live in the world of standardized learning, high stakes testing, very much a great emphasis on literacy and math in grades 3 through 8, which sometimes then pushes science and social studies and other subjects to the perimeter. And many teachers are pressured, whether through their own perceptions or from information that comes from administration, to make sure students are ready to pass that test. However, a key to success to those students passing those tests is being able to actually understand, apply, and synthesize that content. And we see using place-based learning experiences as one great way for teachers to allow students to do that. Typically in pre-K through 6 teacher preparation, because many of these teachers are tasked with teaching multiple content areas and holding on to other responsibilities within their classroom, they have to be exposed and learn a great deal of things in a very short amount of time in a teacher preparation program. It's the old inch deep, mile wide approach. And again, by involving our pre-service teachers in a place-based experience, such as a meaningful watershed experience, it allows them to have that opportunity to dig deeper and see the connections that can be built across disciplines while getting students out and having that opportunity for experiential learning. And so we are hoping that through our work that we do with our learning community students is that place-based learning will become an integral part of their pedagogical repertoire rather than another fad or one and done. And we are attempting, because we see them their freshman year and continue to work with them, that this is something that we can incorporate across their learning, across their teacher preparation, so it becomes a norm for them. So what are some examples? What are some ways we do this in our learning community? Well, those science content courses, our students take 3 in a cohort model: life and environmental science, earth and space, and physics and chemistry. We incorporate interactive field trips into these classes. We get them involved with local school projects. We have worked with the Chesapeake Bay Foundation. For example, canoe trips that the Chesapeake Bay Foundation has led allow students to practice those skills with water chemistry and learning about water and inventorying, micro and macro invertebrates and testing water quality. We have done a lot of tree planting over the years with students, both on school property and as well as at the Arboretum here at JMU, to help them understand how these riparian buffers can slow down erosion, can slow down runoff. And this is something that can even be done on a schoolyard. You don't necessarily even have to plant trees. There can be other ways to construct these things right in the own schoolyard. We learn about soil conservation. I'll show you a picture in a minute of where we get into the soil. Again, things that connect with standards-based learning, but also connects with real life experience. One experience we give our students is to go out and visit the Rockingham County School Farm, which is a learning laboratory for our local school divisions. They not only get to observe high school students learning on the farm how to care for animals, how to sell produce, how to manage the land. They also get to see what learning in a real life context looks like. If you have a future career in agriculture, you're there raising the livestock, you're understanding what to feed them, how to feed them, when to feed them. You're understanding what their other needs are, how to make sure they're up to date on medicine. What would you do if you wanted to sell this animal or breed this animal? We also have them go out and dig a soil pit and learn about perk tests and all the things that would be needed. And you can see that one of our students said it really helped them understand the direct connection that so many of the careers that their future students will have have direct impact on the environment. Another great picture of our students walking past the various pens where the animals are. We also try to incorporate a trip out to the Smith Island Environmental Education Center. This usually takes place in May. So this serves several purposes. Number one, when we're teaching here in Rockingham County, miles away from the coast, learning about how the actions that we take here, such as what we intentionally or unintentionally leave in the environment that gets washed into the watershed, eventually goes to the Chesapeake Bay. It also helps them learn and understand about how to organize and prepare to take students on a field trip and all the things that have to go in to that piece. They also learn about the historical piece because they interact with watermen and local residents and understand the history of Smith Island and how we continue to encroach on that lifestyle. And finally, they actually do some research and conduct a community action project with them. I know some of the things we've been doing is trying to help them remove lumber and things because there is no landfill on the island. We've also tried to promote understanding and knowledge of the island by interviewing residents, doing some oral histories. So again, it's a great culminating experience for our students. We also incorporate visits to local key historical sites in education as part of foundations classes. Up here, you can see a picture of the students visiting a one-room building constructed in one of the first free Black communities here in Rockingham County. This building served as a church, as a school, as a community center. And there are the students sitting in the exact same seats students sat in over 100 years ago, and trying to imagine this is what it would be like to learn and to teach in an environment like this, and how crucial was one of the first buildings this community built was a building to serve as a church, but also as a school, showing that education has always been very important. Also, they're able to see how in a rural community, because various communities and villages and towns were so separated by distance, that this was what kind of held the community together, and how we have gone from having hundreds of these smaller schools and have consolidated into larger schools, and what has happened as a result of that. And then we take them to a school that was built in Harrisonburg to serve the African American community, and was the African American high school. And then they come and take a class in our College of Education, which is housed in the former Harrisonburg High School. And so it really helps them understand some of those critical concepts, such as separate but equal, and how community leaders strove to segregate and keep people apart. And they actually get to walk in the halls of these buildings and hear the voices of students who attended there through an excellent exhibit, and really start to bring home that understanding. So we were very excited when the Virginia Institute for Marine Science, or VIMS, approached us and said they would like to collaborate with us and several other institutions of higher education in the Commonwealth to provide professional development to our pre-service teachers, specifically on meaningful watershed educational experiences, or MWEEs, or as I like to call them, MWEEs. If you're unfamiliar, there is actually legislation in the Commonwealth of Virginia that students must engage in an MWEE at least once in elementary, once in middle, and once in high school. And it's not just watch a video on watersheds or go outside and look at one, but it's got to have a meaningful component. And many times teachers were not made aware of this until they were on into their own classroom. And so we said, well, what would happen if we took a step back and intentionally incorporated this into our pre-service teacher preparation? And we wanted especially to see what it meant to incorporate something like this in our learning community. So VA TIDES was born. Virginia Teachers Innovating and Designing Experiential Science. It had multiple components. First of all, there were professional development meetings facilitated by VIMS faculty at each university. So there were going to be on-site professional development with pre-service teachers to help them start to see what is professional learning, what does it encompass, but also helping them understand what an MWEE is, strengthening their environmental science knowledge. Then a field experience would be provided through VIMS that would be held on site at each university. There would also be several other webinars provided by experts in the field, and then finally a faculty summit. And so Virginia TIDES, we wrote a grant and got funded for the school year 2020-2021 and 21-2022, and then another third year of funding. So it was 5 universities. In year 1, VIMS was going to provide all instruction, provide all the on-site professional development, the on-site field experience. Year 2, faculty would transition into this, take more ownership of the PD for students. And that was the plan for the project. And the objectives were to increase pre-services teachers' understanding and self-efficacy in planning these meaningful watershed educational experiences, but also increase faculty's understanding and awareness of this as an instructional strategy in order to increase capacity building, hopefully by catching students in their pre-service teacher preparation. They're already going out into the field with an awareness of this, hopefully an appreciation of this, and in hopes of building a base of teachers that were excited about this and could do this and could meaningfully, pardon the pun, operationalize this in their own schools. So here for us at JMU, we wanted to integrate content about these MWEEs into our Life and Environmental Science content course. We wanted to have them participate in an MWEE, not only on campus, but also go out to Smith Island, provide some PD within our science courses, and then eventually see if they could even develop or outline one for use in their future classroom. So they would have something ready to go as they stepped into their early career. Now, if you're looking at the calendar, you're scratching your head going, wonder how they did all that in light of, okay, Matt, there it is, COVID. Yes, like many of you, the COVID pandemic forced us to make quite a bit of changes to our initial project goals, as our in-person experiences had to be severely limited, but we did not let that stop us, and we modified our goals. So all the instruction in the content courses, the PD being provided through VIMS, as well as the webinars, as well as the PLCs with all the universities, all went virtual, which in a way was unique, or not unique, but valuable, because it allowed our students to interact with pre-service teachers from other universities, which might not have been possible if VIMS had come out to each site. So this did add a layer of collaboration. We were not able to go out to the Chesapeake Bay at that time, and so we had our students do some very modified, scaled down activities on campus out in our Arboretum area and out in the green spaces near their dorm, doing some water chemistry, doing some tree planting, doing some cleanup work in the Arboretum. And then we engaged in some virtual PLC meetings with guest speakers who led us through things. So not what we wanted, but I still think it was a dynamic experience for all of our pre-service teachers. The first module is they took a 101 course. It was a module that they completed before the first workshop, focusing on environmental literacy and their state science standards. We also had them identify the locally relevant environmental issues. I think many of them did not realize that the water in the stream that goes through the Arboretum eventually empties into the Chesapeake Bay, that all the way up here in Rockingham County that we impact that. I don't think they were aware of the prominence of agriculture in this area, that their students that they would be having in their student teaching and other field experiences were coming from very agrarian-based communities, where farming and raising livestock and poultry and all that is firmly embedded in their day-to-day experiences. And that would need to be taken into consideration when we start talking about this environmental literacy, that we have to take care not to bash certain professions like, well, it's all the farmers' fault. Well, no, you know, and things that have to be done to mitigate that, and some of the, you know, things that are levied against farmers and other agrarian businesses that, you know, might not be aware. Starting to think about what we do when we take students out in the fields, and went with an environmental literacy model to plan a collaborative field investigation. And here's what that model looks like. You can see it has a curriculum anchor. We always start with those good objectives, those learning goals. Where is this taking place? What is it? Is it flat marshland, coastal plain, barrier island, the Allegheny Mountains? and what are we looking at? And then getting students to really think about the issue, define it, operationally define it, not just it being embedded in emotion. And what are we going to do to try to investigate that, given, sometimes the limited time, the limited resources we have in the classroom. The second module was to be a field investigation. And for us, we did some work here at JMU. I know at some of our other, our partners, they were actually able to get out in the field. They had faculty members that collaborated with them, that was able to have the students actually conduct that. Again, we did a more scaled down version here, but we did get students out working in the arboretum and sort of seeing how just even local conditions can make drastic differences. That area can tend to flood, that area can be subjected to runoff. So we got them to see that. And then module 3 is them taking that field data and working with it. For us, we really weren't able to do that. Instead, we really focused on having them think about what were various issues and things that they found both here on campus or that they had in their K-12 experience. A lot of us talked about food waste in the cafeteria, or, why does JMU no longer use trays in our dining establishments? Why are you stuck carrying around a plate of spaghetti and a bowl of salad and your drink? We don't use a tray. We no longer give out plastic lids or straws. So there were some things even right here happening on our own campus that they could delve into why, and does it make a difference? Or is there something else we could do that would make a bigger difference? And start to think about that, not only from being the activist, but being, okay, how do I take an issue like this? How do I embed that into what I'm teaching? How do I lead my students step by step through an investigation, through collecting data, analyzing that, and developing an action plan? And so we were able to get some of that done with them. As you can see that where these pictures were, you can see that we did spend some time out visiting the farm, the school. There they are in the soil pit. Here we are getting outside, even in the depths of COVID, safely. We talked about all the different ways that we could leverage the outdoors and supporting student learning. Again, also talked about environmental issues. And so we did find that we think this does raise student awareness of why we need to get students outside the four walls of our schools. Why do we need to get them out in the environment, making those observations, having those experiential learning opportunities, and how they can make such a difference for certain students to be able to actually be in a certain context or actually experiencing it. And we also talked about these don't have to be, massive field trips all the way out to Smith Island. It could be a scavenger hunt in your own schoolyard. Give students a digital camera and tell them to go look at, take pictures of erosion or where they're seeing runoff, and then have them, talk about the potentials 5 miles away, 10 miles away. Have them research what are things that we could do that cost less than X amount of dollars, or that recycles materials that we could put on our own campus to mitigate some of these things. Again, like we said, there's so many environmental issues tied to our school buildings, such as food waste in the cafeteria, our use of non-renewable resources, climate control, even, putting time in the schedule for students to go outdoors and how that could make a change, or requiring cars not to be on in the car line, or there's lots of things right there in that environment that we can have our students engage in that addresses content standards, have them apply, have them use these real life 21st century workforce skills, and support learning of the environment. And so this has just been one project we have done that we have found successful, and we are continuing this. I'm very excited to announce that we've entered into a partnership with our local school division where our students will be supporting fourth graders who are coming to the Arboretum for their MWEE experience. Our students are going to be helping facilitate the activities. They're going to be supporting the work of master naturalists and people from our soil and water conservation district who are delivering content and activities. They're going to be serving as buddies with the class, interacting with students, learning all that goes into having students out in the field. And so we're just really excited to continue our work with this that VIMS was able to help us to do. And here's our contact information. We welcome your questions at any time. If there's anything we can talk over with you or you'd like to come and see, please let us know. And thank you very much.